Welcome to another edition of Byrd Brains. I'm Rob Reel from Corn Country 100.3. I'm the radio idiot pushing the buttons on this thing. We're in, I guess it's my studio, our studio, the Corn Bin in beautiful downtown Franklin. Big picture window behind me. We're watching the goings-on Jefferson Street. At some point, I hope we can do at least a couple of these from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I may need to get a call into Tim Sullivan or Wally Levitt or somebody to make that sort of thing happen. But in the meantime, working our way around the counter here in the bin. To my right is David Byrd. Across from me is Brian Clausen. And Jonathan Byrd II is to my left as we all kind of face one another and getting ready for the 99th running of the Indianapolis 500. And we told the story, you told the story last time, David Byrd, of the business plan of getting Brian Clausen as your driver. You're not much of an obsessive planner,
nope.
Are you? Not at all?
Nope. Seat of the pants. I make it up as I go along.
From which parent does that come?
I'm sure it's probably Dad.
Dad was the planner?
Yeah. You know, it's a mix though. You know, I'm a planner, but I'm also kind of a dreamer.
Okay.
And you know, so I feel like every day, even though I have a plan and I have a place that I want to get us all to, whether it's, you know, our businesses and the hospitality, the hotels, the restaurants, the racing, things we want to do with Brian. You know, I have the idea and the dream, and I have a general business plan, but I feel like every day I'm really making it up as I go along. So people, you know, because I feel like I'm treading some new paths and some you know, wading some new waters that people really haven't tried before, and we're trying to do some new and interesting things in the world of motorsports that haven't been attempted before. So you know, people tell me you need an assistant. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but I don't know what I would have my assistant do because I don't know how to do what I'm doing, so I don't know how to have somebody help me accomplish it because there's
no manual.
Yeah, there really is. There's no guidebook in some sense. So it's so Dad was a big visionary, I'll say, and he certainly, you know, knew. So he knew what he wanted to see happen, but I think he was kind of the same thing. You kind of had to make it up as you go along and go by the seat of the pants, but just, you know, pay attention to all the details on the way there. And then when you get there, it'll look like you knew what you were doing all along.
So round two of whatever you do ends up going a whole lot more smoothly, yes. I would imagine, although you don't strike me as the kind of guy who does a lot of the same thing twice.
You know, we'll get this first one under our belts and start in on the next one, but it's going to look a lot different. There's going to be.
I hope I catch up by then. You know,
so, okay.
I feel like I'm a year behind him. I mean, we've talked about it, but I still feel like I'm a year behind of where he's at, seeing everything.
Okay.
So it like you said, it's a dream, it's made up, it's everything's on the go, but it's also been cast and it's been, you know, inspired. So he's got the inspiration. He's had the, you know, the calling and the inspiration, and so. I'm just, you know, I just hope I can do what I can do to help and do the best I can. But, you know, he's on it.
And honestly,
so I'm just here to make him laugh, basically.
And honestly, a lot of the inspiration comes from Brian because, you know, when you're able to get, you know, Brian's got so many championships, so many wins. He's so accomplished. So many people, you know, that want him to drive for them, in various levels of racing to see him willing to, you know, cast his lot, to put his trust, you know, and to attach himself to kind of an unknown is inspirational. And then to see him go out and win so many races and to be competitive everywhere he goes and to know the place he has in motorsports already, that kind of inspires me to make sure that we're doing our best to deliver the best quality program that we possibly can. We were just talking a little bit ago. I mean, we had, just as an example, you know, we wanted to make sure that we had everything in place, all of our sponsor deals done, all of everything designed, the look of the car, the suits, the shirts, the transporter, the hero carts, everything designed and done by April 1st, so that when May 3rd for the test rolled around and when, you know, the track opens, everything's done. We're not having anything done last minute. and we're ready to go. We're professional. We're executing 100%. We take care of our sponsors, take care of our people, and put the best foot forward and show that you're an indie one-off, but we're serious and we're going to be here for a long time. Well, like on March 28th or so, there's a company that's out there looking to, do a primary sponsorship at Indy. And they're like, it's this much money and we want to do this. And they're like, but we need about 3 weeks to finalize it.
To get our waterfowl properly aligned, to get our feces coordinated, as my grandmother used to say.
And
Waterfowl properly aligned.
So
thank you.
Yeah. So, they're like, we need like 3 weeks. And I was trying for like a couple of days. I'm trying to figure out, well, maybe we can do this and do that. And how can we get them to make this decision in 3 days? Because I said, I don't want to do that to all of our partners and everybody that's involved. We need to have this done and in place. I just can't wait. And it wasn't an insignificant amount of money they were talking about, but just because I do have a vision and we already, this Indy 500, it's a done deal. I mean, everything's in place. We're ready to go. We're already working towards next year and 2017 and 2018. So it was like, I can't keep working on 2015. That wouldn't be right for Brian. That wouldn't be right for our program. That wouldn't, it's not fitting the big picture. So it's, so that's kind of, that kind of goes with the planning. And I think that kind of goes to what you said. I kind of lost my train of thought.
Okay, let me ask this. If David is the one who dreams it to paper, and Jonathan, you describe yourself as being a year behind him. Yeah. Are you the one who then comes and sort of evaluates what's been working right, and you kind of learn from David's learning? Might be a way of looking at it. That you kind of.
Well, Dave's the dreamer, and I'm the executor. Does that make sense?
as opposed to the executioner
that kills dreams?
Oh, wait. Am I saying that right?
What do you think? What do you think about the execution of your team? I'm in favor of it.
So I just hope I can stay up with him. That's what I hope I can do. So, but we've been working on a lot of things together. I've put together a couple deals. They're more fun deals. They're more ways to promote Jonathan Byrd's, just catching a little bit of his vision, knowing where it takes us and how it takes us. So, we've made like a deal with our friends down at Comedy Sports. I went to a show. I'm like, man, it'd be really fun. And I could see, they do a lot of corporate stuff. And, we are looking to expand our business. So, hey, corporate people, when they have corporate events, need to eat. So, hey, let's do Jonathan Byrd's catering, catering by Jonathan Byrd's for your event. Let's do a deal. So, Jonathan Byrd's is the title sponsor of, I went to the Comedy Sports people and said, this is an arena. They have matches. It's a red team versus a blue team in an arena. Well, every good arena needs a naming rights sponsor. So we are the Jonathan Byrd's Comedy Sports Arena.
I see what you did
there.
So
a fun little deal. We just did a deal with the IndyCar and their people. They love it. It's going to work together. It's going to be a great thing. And I like having fun and doing things that are fun, make people laugh.
What the hell are you doing here then? So
that's just like a small example of I've caught his vision. It's all about business development. Everything we do with the racing, it's about business development. So how can I do that? And I can do small little deals like that. And, he makes it better what the idea I had.
So to borrow from that improv comedy world, you're the yes and guy.
Yes and?
Yes and, which I know is a premise in improv. And I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to come back to yes and with Brian Clausen.
Brian's here. We forgot about Brian.
Wait, Brian.
Where am I?
Try not to talk so much.
Wake up, Brian. Time to go to school.
I got a good nap. Good nap in.
Hey, aren't you just glad to have this much peace and quiet from the dogs and Lauren?
Absolutely. Well, they're at doggy day camp.
So let's get the whole Brian Clausen story. Let's begin at BC. Where do things start for Brian? When do you get the racing bug?
Well, I started racing when I was 5, but it went back before that. I think I went to my first race shortly out of the womb. My dad raced when I was younger. Raced sprint cars in California and
no, what part of California? Like
Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah, he raced like Placerville, Chico, up up north a little bit there, and so yeah, I went to races all my life, and when I was 5, I always feel like I'm a real jerk saying it, but luckily my dad got hurt when I was 5. He had to take some time off, and he had to take a year off. He actually broke his back in a race car, and somehow I talked him into putting me in one.
The nonchalance with which a racer says those sorts of things. Hey, he broke his back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you did what? So,
well, we'll get to that, I'm sure, here in my story, because I got my own own story as that goes. But so I talked him into getting me in a quarter midget, and I actually raced that. Got in that when I was 5, and my dad actually went back racing a year later, but I still raced a quarter midget. He raced one more year, and then decided he was having more fun racing with me, and when I was just almost 9, we moved back to Indy and continued racing quarter midgets for a couple of years. And then
what precipitated the return to Indy for the family?
Well, we
was it better racing?
Well, kind of.
I know that's part of the Jeff Gordon story.
Yeah,
there wasn't enough.
It's kind of it's funny you mentioned that, a convoluted story there a little bit. My dad actually had the opportunity to come back with Jeff when Jeff moved back. My dad had raced with him when he was younger and stuff like that, and in quarter midgets and that, and he had the opportunity to come back, and he turned it down. He had just started racing himself, and obviously, the deal to come back with Jeff was to be more of a mechanic.
What do you mean you want me to buy stock in your little computer company named after a fruit?
Yeah,
what?
Exactly.
What?
So when I got going and got racing good, John Bickford got a hold of my dad and said, "Look, don't make the same mistake with him that you made yourself." And racing was the catalyst, but my dad has worked for the same company for he's got to be getting close to 20 years. He works for Rotary Corporation. They're in the lawn and garden industry. They
haven't become Digital Corporation yet. They're still Rotary.
Yeah, still Rotary.
You're not old enough to remember a rotary phone. Never mind.
I know what you're talking about, though. But basically, they gave him 8 states in the Midwest to choose from, and he handled those 8, to pick from, and Indiana was one of them. So here we landed, and started, raced back here some more, and then did some micro sprint and Kenyan midgets when I was 12 and 13, and the year my birthday's in June, so I always kind of, it falls funny. But the year I was 13, 14, I climbed in a sprint car for the first time, and haven't looked back. I always laugh because 25 years old, and I guess maybe not so much over the last 2-3 years, but in Indy in 2012, I was 22 years old and had been on the front row at Daytona in a nationwide race. I've sitting at the Indianapolis 500. I've been to the biggest short track races in the world, and got to do a lot of cool stuff at a young age, and still getting to do cool stuff. So that's fun. I
do have to say, you're one of the few people who's been in this room who's actually in a video game. You do exist in certain racing video games. So what's the experience like? I have to know. I can speak to having been an athlete in junior high and high school, and what that experience is like. What is it like being a race car driver going to school in junior high and high school? Do the ladies notice, or is this because, let's be honest, why do you play sports? Why do you race cars? Why do you join a band? Why do men do anything?
Do it for the women.
Yeah, it's for the women.
Do it for the shorties.
Because the chicks dig it.
I thought it was for the love of the sports or whatever.
I mean, I think...
it's for the love. This is Leon Phelps, your native man.
I recognize you.
Cool
I got that one. Attaboy. That was from the 90s.
So do the ladies notice that you was a race car driver?
I think, even high school and junior high, it's tough because you're, a sport like that, especially at the level that I was racing at that age, you're gone so much. I probably did 3 years of high school. I mean, I probably missed a full year in my 4 years of
Me
of high
too,
school.
but for different reasons.
Fair enough.
This is more like being acting kid than it is being sports kid in high school, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you're just gone. Your Friday, Saturday, Sundays are all taken up. You're
Shot
right
to
gone
hell.
racing. I mean, you're not going to whatever parties or I guess I don't really know what high schools do. But
You're not dating Mary Jane Pinafore, captain of the cheerleaders
exactly.
at this point.
So I mean, it's a little bit different, but I think you end up growing up a little bit quicker because you're around adults and you're in a business environment at 16, 17, 18 years old, and you learn. And one of the biggest, going back a little bit to my racing career, I was at 16 had a driver development deal with Chip Ganassi, and actually went down. That's what took me down south to the stock car stuff for a few years. And looking back, you could never do it, but looking back, it's that's a hard thing to do at 17, 18 years old, and leave home and move to North Carolina and jump into the business world. And talent wise, I think I was prepared, but maybe didn't have an understanding of the business side of things. Not so much on what I needed to do as far as my responsibilities, but standing up for yourself in certain situations and making sure you take care of yourself. So it's been a learning 25 years. I think I learn something every day, and but it's a lot of fun. And then you have deals like this that come together that kind of rebirth your belief in the sport.
What were the benefits of at least your dad having been around racing as much as he was, going into those sorts of situations, and looking back, if and when you choose to have kids, if you choose to have kids at all, would you even recommend or support a son or daughter doing the kinds of things you did as a teenager?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm 25 years old and haven't had a drink of alcohol in my life, never done anything like that. So, I mean, is much on the time I spent on the road, I think, I was surrounded by good people, and we kind of joke about it, sprint car racing especially. We're kind of like we call ourselves high-class carnies. I don't even know that we are high-class carnies. We roll in.
You smell nothing like cabbage.
Yeah, we roll in.
Well, a little like
a little
kale.
bit, but
Small
we roll
hands.
in one night and we're out the next. But you're with it's a big family, and I tell you, if I have a kid, I'm getting them golf clubs because
It's a good call.
Old Jordan, he picked up a nice paycheck at 22 there,
Yeah,
21,
yeah, he
22
did.
the other day. And I think this sport's a tough sport, to break into. It's so, money drives everything, whether you're in baseball, you're going to go to the best camps or whatever. But, you look at some of the other sports, and it's, your opportunities here are a lot more driven by money than anything else. And it's just timing and finding the right place at the right time, meeting the right people at the right time, and then being able to do your job when the time comes.
Because I know Brian Clausen will not brag on himself. He's too humble to do that. I will ask the brothers Byrd to do that for him. What on the list of accolades got your attention to start thinking Brian Clausen is our guy to return to the Indianapolis 500?
Well, it was,
and I know there's more to it than
yeah,
the resume, but what about the resume got your attention?
Well, obviously it's a combination of things. When I put together the business plan for us to return, it was right after the 2014 Chili Bowl, which Brian had just won. So the Chili Bowl being the biggest midget race of the year, for that kind of almost sealed the deal. But it's really his, for me, it's 2 national midget championships, 3 national midget driver of the year. It's the Chili Bowl championship, the Turkey Night wins, his 3 USAC national driver of the year championships, and then having been at Indy in 2012 and being there every single day, see him out of the box as a rookie at Indy with, I think it was 6 races of rear engine, aero oval experience at that time in Indy Lights. And then to be a rookie at Indy with a brand new car, So it's a small team with a rookie teammate with brand new cars and brand new engines that nobody knew anything about. And I think one testing day probably prior to Indy to see him be super smooth, top 5 every single day, and just watching that unfold and basically not putting a wheel wrong, until qualifying,
Until it matters.
Just kind of all that together. Obviously, the sprint car championships and the success he's had in every form of racing, but for us, it's for me. It's the success in midgets, because success in midgets, in my mind, in our experience with Rich Vogler, Stan Fox especially, whether it's pavement or dirt, success in midgets translates extraordinarily well to success in an Indy car at Indianapolis.
So I then turned to Jonathan Byrd II, knowing all of this stuff about Brian as a driver, but knowing that your name is literally fried chicken, as we like to say, in central Indiana, South Central Indiana too, and knowing that the Byrd name has always been about food, family, fun, what about Brian that is immeasurable? What are the intangibles that, as you look at that laundry list of accomplishments and you see the way he is 2012 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, talk about those intangibles, those things that maybe you can't define, that you went, yep, Brian's our guy.
So talk about things you can't define.
I know, right? Talk about things you can't talk about. I've painted you into a corner.
One thing I remember, we recently went to watch Brian race over in basically south of St. Louis, and he raced a heat race. Unfortunately, the motor blew at the end of the heat race. But I just saw in that race, he was just in that heat race. You were just toying, with you were a cat and that was a mouse. You were just toying, taking your time, and then you just passed the guy. So those are some things that just in a midget on dirt, I think that just blew me away. So, and then I have implicit trust in my brother that he knows what he's talking about. He was going to all the races. He went to all the lights. He was working with Brian, doing the PR and stuff like that. He studied a lot more. So I knew the laundry list. I follow racing as much. Brian Klaus's name comes up a whole bunch and a lot. He parks a lot of victories in the victory lane, and so, being associated with a winner, that makes tons of sense.
Yeah,
that makes a
huge
amount of things.
There are guys who've accomplished a lot, and then there are winners.
Yeah.
So,
talking about that race, it's kind of interesting. I was telling somebody about it the other day, and he's, it's almost it seems like it's small. It was a heat race. It was 8 laps, power eye race. Little Belleville, great track that Brian just goes really well at, and Brian hadn't been in that midget in almost 3 months, I think, since he'd been in a midget. And, he's been racing, non-wing sprints, wing sprints all over the country. And, so he'd probably had a 2-lap hot lap session, 2 or 3 laps hot laps before that, but he's out in the heat, in the heat race, and started, I think, 4th. And, goes to 2nd right away. Then it was like, I was thinking, watching, all right, so this first few laps, he's running around in 2nd place. It's like almost like he's remembering, okay, midgets are different from the wing sprint car and the sprint car. All right, I got the feel now. So 4 laps in, go to 1st, then win the race.
You can see, pardon the idiom, you can see the wheels turning in his head.
Yeah,
almost
very very cerebral. And again, he's not going to talk about this for himself, but he studies it. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He's a cerebral driver. He didn't win. He didn't win that night, but the guy who he coaches, who races for him in the Brian Carlson Incorporated midget, he won that night. So
very convoluted.
So, and that's a business that, Brian runs, and he and his dad work together, and they have sprint cars and midgets, and 3 of Brian's championships that he's won in USAC, he won driving for himself. So, I mean, that there's a lot to say for that too, on the business end of things. So he's very cerebral. He's a great coach. He's got the driven driver development program. So, guys come and race for him and work with him and his dad, and they get better as a result as well. So that speaks very highly of Brian too, that he's not only a driver, he understands the business of racing. And, it made sense, we were, a little while ago when we came and did the radio show one morning, you asked him what he would do if he wasn't racing.
Yeah.
He said he'd probably be a teacher.
Yeah.
And he said like maybe math or whatever, but it shows that that's something, it does show through he is a teacher. I mean, at the Chili Bowl, he had 4 guys racing for him at the Chili Bowl, 3 of them with not a ton of experience in midgets, but one that's a little bit more, but 2 of them really young, and one who's a great sprint car driver, but no experience in midgets. And, he helped them all progress through. And, one of them, made the A main along with Brian on Saturday night at the Chili Bowl. So, his influence, in motorsports extends beyond the fact that he is constantly going to victory lane.
So I've watched Brian Clausen sit here uncomfortably as the Byrd brothers say all these nice things about him. I turned back to BC to say, all right, so with all that you had already accomplished, what is your reaction when these guys come to you with a 9-page business plan, as David has previously described, and they say, look, you're our guy, and you can look at them enough to know that it's not foolhardy people with what I like to call FU money, just throwing it at racing as a hobby, and then the kind of people who run through drywall and leave a cartoon-shaped hole, and somebody has to come along and patch it. These are people who've done their homework much the way you do, and have a nice combination of the plan of it and the feel of it. So, talk about your reaction when David Byrd shows up on your doorstep.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I say it all the time. I half laughed after the first meeting. Like, I called one of my managers and just said, "Look, we need to talk to this guy, David." I said, "But there's no way this is happening. Like, this is at the time we were talking about 2016. I'm like, I can't even get a phone call for 2014. This was back to me in 2014 or 15. This guy's calling me for 16 already. That's 3 Indy 500s from now. And, it was fairly skeptical.
That's 6 seasons of Dancing with the Stars.
Exactly. Like 8 or 9 of The Voice. It's,
How many American Idols will we have between now and then?
And so
how many Kardashian weddings will we have between now and then?
That's no lie. So you're skeptical because here you are. All I have in motorsports is my name, and one of the things that in the initial business plan is was to make an announcement fairly soon about an Indy 500 a couple from now. So you're guarded about what you've like I said, all I've got's my name. So you're kind of guarded about lending that to somebody you don't necessarily know all that well, and to be frank, I was probably a little bit of a jerk at the beginning. We worked together, but I was pretty demanding, so I guess I was sort of in a position to be, and they came through and have continued to come through. And there's still things that David tells me today that I go, there's no god dang way this is happening. And he'll call me about a week later and say, hey, remember that thing I was telling you about? Yeah, well, it's done. We're going to do it. Okay. So, it's a special group. And I think, in racing, it's a lot about who you surround yourself with as much as anything. You got to have people that believe in you and that are working towards the same goals. And, I feel like I've found a home here. I still, anytime I turn over, longtime sponsors to David, I warn him that he's crazy and he has big dreams, and that, 1 second you'll be talking about sponsoring a race car, and the next you'll be talking about, you giving him a free jet to be part of this race team and how it's going to make your business better and this and that. I said, but you just got to go with it, because the end all is always for the good. And, it's been a lot of fun working and building, not only this year's program, but looking towards the future. And, can't wait to see where it goes.
But let's steal an opportunity to see how well you lads all work together. We have just enough time to sneak in one of the shenanigans from my regular program.
Yay, games!
We on our show we
Sports
call it
games.
we call it To the Letter in 30 Seconds. Wow, Joanna, it's more like Joanna. today. That's what we. Joanna is my co-host. For those who've not listened to Corn Country 100.3, and if you haven't, why? But when she gets sick, she gets the Joanna voice. This is actually of her concoction. It's to the letter in 30 seconds. It'll be 30 seconds on the clock. 10 categories that I'll be reading and scoring. This will be an interesting challenge. So Brian, as the driver, will be the voice.
Oh,
But
boy.
Jonathan Byrd II and David Byrd will help with feeding him answers. There's a bowl of letters on the counter in front of you, Brian. Reach in there and grab one of those if you would, sir.
We got an M.
M. So 30 seconds on the clock, 10 categories. Each response begins with the letter M. Clock begins when I read the first category, which is cartoon character.
Marge.
Sandwich.
Mustard sandwich.
Mustard.
Celebrity.
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson.
Yeah, we'll count it. Something that is red. Meat. Reason for getting fired.
Mouthing off.
Musician.
Madonna.
Yeah.
Fruit.
Mango.
5-letter word.
Mango.
Something in your car. I want to see if you can go 10 for 10.
Something in our car.
Something in your car. And not Keith Urban. Something in your car.
Mouse.
Monster.
A monster. A motor.
Yeah.
We'll call it 10 for 10. Well
Yes.
done. And
That is 45 seconds.
Yeah,
with
close enough. That's
Birds.
to the letter in 30 seconds, which, of course, you can hear on my fine regular program, The Corn Morning Show on Corn Country 100.3. Hashtag shameless plug.
And I really contributed to that. I
Good
feel
job.
pretty strong about
Hey.
my performance there.
David, that's the best you've ever sounded on this
Extraordinaire.
program. So
Quite the storyteller.
that'll
Rich,
rich,
compelling.
and compelling. There's part of me that wants to end this episode as Ron Burgundy. Good night, San Diego. No, I'm not going to do it. That'll wrap up another edition of Bird Brains. Jonathan Byrd II, Brian Clausen, David Byrd.
John the Birds. I-65 exit 99 Main Street, Greenwood.
Talk about
Fried chicken.
Hashtag shameless plug. Chicken and noodles, Jenny 500.
Mac and cheese.
I'm Ron Reel from Corn Country 100.3.
Turkey.
Best of health and luck until we get together again. And we are so very, very sorry.
Bread pudding.
Who put the question mark?